let's get right. People are talking about it right now. Master Chief in the first couple of Halo games was a stand-in for the player who was actually supposed to be the main character in the game. Viper Chief, you are absolutely right. I am someone, let's go to a banner here. Okay, right. Let's talk about this. And I am going to get to your comments. So, but I saw the first 2 episodes of the Halo series. And I'm in 2 minds about it. There are things about it that I really love. And then there's the story. Let me tell you, let's go through the good, the bad, and the ugly of the Halo TV series. Number 1, the opening scene, there's this colony that is literally wiped out by Covenant. I don't know, what do you call them? Soldiers, troops, whatever.
Yeah.
The Covenant comes there. They're looking for an artifact. There's this very poorly placed base right near where this artifact is being taken, and some children are there. And it starts off right in the opening scene. There's like five or 6 kids, and they're just sort of hanging out and whatever. And there's this one girl, I believe her name is Quan. She ends up becoming kind of a major character. She's there with her friends, and the Covenant comes down and murders them. And it's not like some oh, they just sort of like in an old Western. Oh, I'm shot. And it's a bloodless death. No, I mean, I'm talking about parts flying. And we're talking about like a 10 or 11-year-old kid get shot and parts just fly. It's like a bloody video game. It's gruesome. So the Covenant comes in, wipes out those kids. Quan makes it to the base, and then the Covenant invades. All these kids are kind of put along with Quan, and her father's like a prominent within the base, right? Like he might be a leader. In any case, so they throw all these kids behind this barrier. The Covenant comes in and starts to just wipe everyone out, including Quan gets away, but then they kind of open this door, and all of the kids that are protected behind this barrier are murdered by the Covenant. It's brutal. And for me, it's really cool to just see like, oh wow, like, okay, I love sort of the the story segments within Halo were the ones that I didn't skip by. I usually tend to skip them because they're not great, but the ones I didn't skip were things like BioShock or Halo, when it's a really compelling story. And was shocked at the level of violence. I thought, oh, this is great. It's matching the video game. Everyone on this base is wiped out or is getting wiped out when, of course, boom, the Spartans come down, right? And there's Master Chief and like 3-4 other Spartans. They come down and they start to, I think, 4 total. And it's like a multiplayer part. And then they start pushing back against the Covenant, and they're not easy to take down either, right? So they drive them away and then find this artifact and take the artifact. Quan is the only one, this young Asian girl is the only one who survives, and she goes with the Spartans. I don't want to ruin too much about it, but it's very R-rated. Yeah, it would be like Geek Truth 64 says, sounds like the R-rated opening of Ewok Battle for Endor. 100%. Everybody is killed except for one surviving girl, right? So I don't want to get into too much of the details of the story, but it's not, there are elements that are connected to stories in the Halo series. But this is 2 things. One, it includes those elements. You see the Covenant, you see the Covenant leaders, you see that group, that kind of council, right? And then you see, I'm going to get to that. Shinatsky asks, is it true the females are the real leads? I will say this, they're not the real leads, but they are among the major leads.
Yeah, I think he's bringing up a bigger question. And I think it is where I think the advertising and some of the initial images, they're giving the implication, much like Lord of the Rings, that this is kind of a virtue signaling type story. you know, where the women take the lead and where it's very woke. But from your description, at least so far, it sounds like it is an extension of the video game in a way.
I've only described like the first 15 minutes because I don't want to get into too much of too many of the spoilers. And real quick to Turo, not only have I seen Bambi versus Godzilla, I've seen it in a theater.
Yes, I have too.
I saw it in the theater back when I was a kid for the Animation Celebration, which is actually on YouTube. You can Google that. It's the Animation Celebration. I saw that as a kid when I was way too young. It features full frontal nudity and some really incredible animation by Will Vinton. But if you get me talking about this stuff, I will go off on tangents. So my apologies to everyone.
Stay with Halo.
Let's stay with Halo here. But so they take off with this woman Quan, right? And there are other leads other than Master Chief. And in the first episode, this you see who Master Chief is. He takes off his mask, his helmet, and he just is sort of a regular looking dude. Not a bad actor either. So right off the bat, they're like, look, we're not going to beat around the bush. Like you're going to meet him. And what begins to happen is because of his contact with this artifact, it taps into memories in Master Chief, AKA John, his brain of his younger life, right? Some suppressed memories. So, right off the bat, this thing is kind of an origin story of Master Chief, a gateway into the world of Halo that merges aspects of the Halo game, but it's not an accurate representation of any one of the games. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, so let me ask you this then. Is this Master Chief's story, or is this a world building kind of series?
I would say it's more on the level of world building. Right? Like Master Chief is he's the lead, but he's not, the story's not following. The story is Quan, the sole survivor of this massacre at this base is it's sort of like you're getting into the story through her, right? Mm-hmm. And then she becomes important for other reasons.
Now, is she a Padawan to Master Chief?
No, not at all. She's not a Padawan. And the thing is this, what I will say this is it's pretty balanced. The one thing I didn't like, there's a woman later that is, I don't want to ruin too much. I just want to say this. There's a woman who's delivering lines that should have some gravitas. And this is going to sound ageist for a second. So let me go off on this because this bugs me because I've seen this in other projects. When they cast an actor, that I believe is just too young to deliver certain lines. Mm-hmm. Because I'll say this, the reason we're all having these geek conversations right now is because of a movie called Star Wars, but not just because of a movie called Star Wars.
25 minutes.
We made it.
25 minutes.
Without mentioning Star. No, but let me get into it. So Alec Guinness gives a speech about what the Force is to Luke, right? After their encounter with the Sand People, the Tusken Raiders, and all he does is tell you what the Force is. He tells it to you with such gravitas that what Alec Guinness is saying, this man in his 60s is saying, seems so serious that you don't need a special effect. He's selling you exactly on what the Force is. This happens again later in the original Star Wars. Right. Obi-Wan Kenobi, he after Alderaan blows up, he just kind of like has to sit down and rest, and he talks about as if a million voices suddenly cried out and were silenced, right? Like that one, he's using your imagination as the audience to express that information, but he does it with such gravitas, such weight, that it means something, you
take it seriously. You definitely take it seriously when he says it.
Right. And I think that my problem with Halo and some of this is they've cast some really young actors in roles that should be older actors. I'm speaking specifically about like military leaders, right? I don't buy a 22-year-old girl as a military leader. Or I wouldn't, not a 22-year-old man or a boy. It doesn't matter, you know, like, so I think that like some of it was like, oh, this line would be awesome if it was delivered by Max von Sydow, right? Who's the actor who played Ming the Merciless in Flash Gordon, among many other things. Please feel free to look up Max von Sydow. He was also in The Force Awakens, delivered a great line that doesn't even pay off, that pays off, that is totally meaningless and worthless. So right off the bat, you're sort of in the world building, but I'll explain it this way. The 1989 Batman movie is not from the point of view of Batman. The 1989 Batman movie is from the point of view of a reporter trying to track down Batman. And that is what this is like, right? So the point of view is, you remember the actor played by the character played by Robert Wool?
Yes.
Remember? Okay, so he's the reporter. He's trying to find out the Batman. Does he have fangs, right? And he's friends with Vicky Vale, and he's trying to find out who Batman is. That's the point of view of the movie. So the point of view of this movie is not from the point of view of Master Chief, even though he's a very major character. Does that make sense? Yeah. And I would argue and go on, this is a super uber movie nerd cinema reference here. Citizen Kane is from the point of view of a reporter trying to figure out who Citizen Kane is and never figures it out, right? And you go into this other narrative that gives you pieces of Charles Foster Kane's life, but it's a reporter trying to figure out what the meaning of his last words, his dying words were, which is Rosebud, right? The audience figures it out, but the reporter never figures it out, right?
All right.
So
it sounds like Halo is, the description you're giving me is very different than what I think we've all been kind of led to believe it would be. Kind of it felt like it was going the Lord of the Rings route, but it looks like it's going down a more truer route.
Well, as for Lord of the Rings, I'll say this. I don't think we know enough about it.
Yeah.
Yet.
Like, but we know what people are saying about it. And I felt like they were saying the same thing about Halo.
Well, there are people talking about Lord of the Rings now that are far more qualified to talk about it. I don't consider myself qualified to talk about Lord of the Rings. I'm a fan of the Lord of the Rings movies. I did not like the Hobbit movies. I saw the trailer for the Amazon, Rings of Power and was thoroughly unimpressed. And whatever, I'll watch. I'm actually more excited about, The Boys than anything else. And Sean McClure says, Chris is a traitor. Wait, how am I a traitor? In what respect?
I think we have to read the,
I got to read that. I got to catch up on the chat here.
I know, we're behind on
chat. I'm so sorry. But what I'm saying is that the point of view, this young girl Quan has kind of entered the world of Halo and Master Chief, and it's kind of like she's experiencing all this as someone who doesn't know what's going on, but then it kind of shifts into more about Master Chief, and it's kind of the origin of Master Chief, right? So they basically have said, look, these video games have great story material, and we're going to tell you a story in the world of Halo, but it's not based on any particular, edition of the game. And I'll say this, like, I loved Halo. Reach kind of like it lost me, and then there was that one strategy game, right? But
I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
I bought the soundtracks to Halo. That music, you could sit there to anybody, you go up to a game and you just say, you know what I mean? Like, you go up to anyone, that music really made it. It was, and someone pointed out earlier that the first few Halo games were like, you are Master Chief, right? Like, you're in his helmet. You are, it's a, first person point of view, right? But I would always play through and just to sort of get like, okay, I want to learn the maps and the weapons. And as soon as I was done with that, I was like, boom, it was all about multiplayer. Halo, for me, my experience of playing Halo was all about multiplayer. So many great maps, So many great like drinking games. You'd be on the headset. I made friends with, people from all over playing that game. There'd be certain times of the day and I'd be playing Australians. I mean, it was like Halo, the multiplayer experience, probably one of the best in the history of gaming in terms of a multiplayer experience where other types of games have tried to replicate that.
Yeah, I mean, I was an Xbox guy from the very beginning, and Halo was certainly a part of that. And there was a point where at work, the IT department bought a bunch of Xboxes, and at lunchtime it was 16 man Halo Wars.
No, I can't tell you how many times I'd like go to some company to be like, hey, yeah, do you want to play? Like they've got like a conference room where they had it all like hooked up. So that stuff was so fun. So most of my memories of Halo is playing through the game once, listening to the soundtrack relentlessly, and then doing multiplayer.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
and hanging out with friends. So, but in any case, here we go. Let's get to some of the comments and questions. So my opinion of it is, my opinion of having seen the first few episodes is, and they really are just kicking off the story in some interesting ways. I have to say, I was actually really impressed with the special effects. They just sort of cut to the chase on you see Master Chief, you see the origins of Cortana. That's in the second episode. So so I don't want to get into too much.
So I think the important question is, are you going to episode 3?
I think I will. I might even like wait until it's all comes out and then just subscribe to Paramount Plus and binge it. But I don't know. I mean, God, do I need another streaming service? I'm so tired of them. But
the point is it's compelling enough to get to the next episode and see where it goes.
I'll say this. My impression of the first 2 episodes is I'm interested in finding out what happens next.
But you're not blown away, it sounds like.
No, I didn't think I would feel that way, but I also just hope that they resolve all this. Like I say, like the entry level, like people don't complain about Batman 89, but I always point out it's like it's not his point of view. The hero's journey is actually Jack Napier. Jack Napier is the person, if you track his character follows the hero's journey, right? In addition, Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, is not about Anakin, it's about Jar Jar. He follows the hero journey of a hero who like leaves, comes back to his homeworld, conquers, or comes back home, conquers. He follows the Joseph Campbell hero's myth, right? So I haven't seen enough of the Halo series, just the first 2 episodes, about 50 minutes for each episode. But I'll get into it. I'm going to answer.
We got to get into comments. Yeah.
Let's get into comments and questions here. And my apologies. In Halo, the Covenant have energy swords, which is essentially a lightsaber. Yes, they do. And it's freaking gruesome. There are gruesome deaths with energy swords. In the game, it happens pretty quick or whatever.
Yeah.
But they go for it. They really use the energy swords. So wait a sec. Turo says, Chris has a great memory. Nah, not really. I would not say that. I would say there's certain parts I have a good memory of. And then there you go. Let's start from the top, and my apologies about this.
Yeah, you have a long way. We have a long way back to go.
Okay, cool. So let's go right back to here. They're going to Boba Fett Master Chief in the Halo series by having him take off his helmet every single time.
Yeah, I was surprised to hear you say that.
Yeah, I'm really surprised, but I feel like they wanted to get it out of the way. And this is an origin story kind of Master Chief, kind of where he got to where he is and how he becomes the hero that he will be. But he's grappling with his past.
So does John give off the Master Chief vibes, or is he John?
No, absolutely. I mean, he's like, you see him, he's in the mask. It's not until later that he takes his mask off. But they get into the Spartan program and kind of like how they're tools of the state, which I found really interesting. But
I mean, in the video games, he's a broken man in a way.
Thank you, Viper Chief 117, who also has a comment. Goes, I'm saying Master Chief in the first couple of Halo games was a stand-in for the player who was actually supposed to be the main character. Yes, that's right. Yeah. You read that one before. Here we go. Sound of one man laughing. Not sure if many studios want a visionary director now. Well, I would say that. I would say that for sure. Let's get back to Halo comments. And again, we'll have our super chats hopefully fixed by this week. And I'll say this, Halo 3 is still my favorite. Luke James, I agree with you. Yeah, they kind of like, that was the penultimate. So I waited when I got my Xbox 360. This is 2005. I spent the night in line, sleeping on a sleeping bag. I had
gone to the wrong places.
Yeah, well, I was in Pasadena at the Best Buy. I spent the night in line, and I remember a friend of mine was like, "Hey," like came over to like, "You're in line. Hey, good for you. You're gonna get the Xbox 360." Because I remember I was so excited because they handed out numbers for the people in line. I was number 42, number 42, which I always, you know what that means? Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
42, yeah.
42. So I kept it. I was so great. I got it, and I was so sore the next day. I vowed I will never do that again, and I have not spent the night overnight for tickets.
Yeah, I live in Orange County. It was so much easier. I just walked up and bought it.
Rob M, let's guess. The female lead will be better than Master Chief. Let me just say this. She is not. She is a kid, a teenager who, you know, is the sole survivor of this massacre. And she is a side character. It's like saying Star Wars is about C-3PO and R2-D2. They're important and they're part of the story, but it's Luke Skywalker's story, right? Yes.
So she's not Daniel to Mr. Miyagi, basically.
She's not. I mean, like, there are a lot of other characters. You meet the woman who will, in effect, become Cortana. Although when I saw the trailer, I wasn't super jazzed about how Cortana looks. But it could be an evolving thing. It's one of those things where you have like evolutions of a costume and they introduce her. I don't know how much I should get into spoilers.
Yeah. Does she at least sound like Cortana?
She's fine. She's fine, but she's not Cortana at the beginning.
She's not the AI. She's a person.
She's going to become Cortana. She begins as a scientist who creates Cortana based on herself. It's partially AI hybrid. You'll see. Let's keep going with the comments here. They didn't even get Steve Downs to do the voiceover work for the character, since they could have easily done it as a voice modulator. Yeah. I mean, yeah, they could have, like, I just don't know that, like, when you look at like areas of fandom, I think that there are ones where canon is super important. And, for me, like I say, I played, most of the Halo games all the way through story mode. Then I just went right to multiplayer. And that's all I really cared about was, just kicking my friends' asses. So there you go. I will say this. It says graphics and fight scenes, I bet, are good. That impressed me the most about it was because there was that, what was that one? What is it? I'm trying to remember, is it ODST or something? There was like a Halo commercial that aired once where I'm like, oh my God, this is like a short film. This is what the Halo movie should be. And then they never, they didn't go that route, but it looks really good. The effects are good. I was just surprised how over the top the violence was. I mean, lots of children die in the first episode, and not just like they die off screen or whatever. It's like, no, they're like, it's shocking, brutally blown up and splattered. Pieces of a human go flying in the air. So there you go. In the Halo games, the resistance fighters are called insurrectionists. So I don't remember if they used that word specifically, but it felt like, having watched the first episodes, the 2 episodes, was they're just trying to introduce you into elements of the world and tell an original story within this. Otherwise, if they just did one of the Halo games as a movie, we would know everything that happens, right? Like, so I don't mind this approach. Like, I'm not as married to the canon. I never read any of the Halo novels. But I do know one of the people who worked quite a bit on Halo, Frank O'Connor. I have a weird story about Frank O'Connor. So I don't know if I should tell this story.
Yeah,
let's stay
we'll get him in
focused on
trouble.
the show. If someone reminds me, I'll tell a story of like how I know Frank O'Connor and whatnot, and we'll get into that. So so there you go. Ulysses Valenzuela says Halo story ended with Halo Reach. Leave it alone. I mean, look, here's the thing: is this? These stories never end. These stories will never ever end. You know what I mean? Like
as long as there's money to be made, they'll keep going on.
Look, we're gonna see at some point. We're gonna see Star Wars Episode X.
Yeah.
They're going to do 10, 11, 12. I guarantee there's going to be a new trilogy that's going to be announced. It's going to be 10, 11, 12. It may or may not have like old Rey. Hopefully she has like mechanical arms and legs, which she lost in some battle. Who knows? Or an eye patch. Who doesn't love an eye patch on a battle-hardened genre character? So yeah, here we go. Fletcher Williams. There are things that I love. Then there is the story. Yeah. Well, the story I feel like I can't 100% judge right now. Like it's introduced some really interesting story threads, right? That we don't know where they're going. And I love the Covenant. Like I wonder if they'll get into other aspects of the Halo universe. I hope they do. Did they ever explain the modern truck being in the background? Shinatsky says, I don't think so. And I don't remember it. Rob M says, Halo is not really bloody. Yeah, it's sort of like science fiction violence, but because the people that are being slaughtered at the beginning are just people in regular. I mean, the thing that did bug me was weird in the Halo show is everyone has really weird haircuts. They have like dreads that are like shaved like a mullet, and it looks bad. It looks, I guess it looks different. You know, it's like, well, I guess we haven't seen that in Star Wars necessarily. And I guess maybe that's what it would be. But you know, it just looked weird. Like, okay, I guess that's the hairstyle. It's not a feathered haircut like Mark Hamill in the very first Star Wars. Marksman of 117B. I grew up with Halo. They're going to step on what makes it great. You know what? I can't tell.
Yeah.
My only conclusion, I mean, is that I'm interested in seeing the third episode based on what I've seen so far. I just don't want another streaming service. So
yeah. I mean, it sounds like you're just saying that we got to go a little deeper into before we cast judgment.
Yeah, it's like if it starts to go off the rails where there's an entire episode about Quan and this and whatever and her family and I don't know, that's not going to interest me all that much. Not going to interest me all that much. So I don't know. It's got to stay focused on Master Chief and his story, and that it really is like his I guess the best way to describe it is his origins. Even though he's fully who he is, there are these flashbacks precipitated by this artifact that is energized when Master Chief touches it. It sort of comes to life, and then these visions come before him of a past life he didn't know he had, if that makes sense. Viper Chief 117 says, I might still subscribe to Paramount Plus, seeing as though I've been looking forward to seeing Halo on the screen since they announced that Peter Jackson and Neil Blomkamp film was announced. I'll say this. I feel like the effects and the story and the music, although the music doesn't fully, the soundtrack to the game is better. Let's just say that. The soundtrack to the game is better. It just is. So yeah. There you go. But it's like it's
so iconic. Yeah,
I really am impressed by the theatrical quality effects. Is what I'm saying. It must have. I mean, maybe it was development that they did on the movie, and then they took those elements and used it. You know, I mean, here we go. Geek Truth 64 sounds like the R-rated. Okay, we got to that one.
Yeah. Good comment though.
No, but that's a good comment. Yeah, the Halo 2 anniversary cutscenes are beyond amazing. Yeah, when they do those upreses, like, yeah, the cutscenes are great. It's a great story. Is it a movie? I don't know. Although I would have, an approach they could have taken with the Halo movie. They could have done this. It would have been groundbreaking. Is they could have done it all first person. And you never see Master Chief's face. He never takes the helmet off. It's kind of like that movie. What's that movie that the director of Nobody made?
Was it? I mean, didn't Doom try to do that? Or
only for one scene. It was not that great.
okay.
But the director of Nobody is a guy named Ilya Nashuler, and I interviewed him actually. It's on the channel. Just look up Nobody interview. I interviewed the director of that. He also made a movie called what's it called? It's called Hardcore Henry. That was it.
Oh yeah, that's the one.
If you've ever seen Hardcore Henry is point of view. The whole movie is the point of view of Henry, and they make up all these kind of story reasons for why it's his point of view. It actually works. It actually completely works. So
isn't that Shelton Copley or
I don't know.
Yeah,
but I strongly recommend it. They could have gone that route, but I'm sure it's one of those things where a studio note, you can hear the studio note sometimes. Whenever I watch this stuff, I'm like, that was a studio note. That was a studio note. Like the young girl who delivers this really kind of important information about like what's happening politically in the galaxy, and it sort of falls with a thud. You're just like, and she's talking to Master Chief, and it's just like, okay, with like a hologram. She's talking to Master Chief, and it's this young girl, and I think maybe she's just a bad actress. I just thought she was not very good. But again, it's one of those things where it's like, if you're going to give that line to somebody old, like a General Dordana or something, that's what was great about the original Star Wars series is it was surrounded by like all these like old guys in the background that would have like one line, like General Riken. And they'd have like one line, but they'd be like, like, oh, it has some weight. You didn't need, and this goes for, like, for example, the scene on the Death Star where you have Peter Cushing and it's surrounded by all these, intimidating, leaders. And they're all like, it's just, there's some about that's like really intense. And I feel like you can't cast even a small role like that matters. And I feel that it's in the first episode, this young girl, and she's just not very good. And there are other roles like that I just felt like needed better actors or actors with more gravitas. So there you go. So Viper Chief 117. So is this Gears of War meets Halo? I would say from the violence standpoint, it's definitely more Gao than anything else. I used to love Gears of War. That sort of weird way you just kind of run and then you get behind a rock and then you kind of hide, and then
I could never get far in that game. It's just so hard.
No, but it was fun because you always just bring out the chainsaw. The chainsaw was good. And then where did Chris Gore get that Alex Jones inspired shirt? How is this Alex Jones inspired? I don't get that comment.
Fortunately, we don't watch him.
Expand upon that. Master Chief is supposed to be sidelined for the new Spartans. That's not true. I mean, the new Spartans are really not a big part of it. It's Master Chief for the first 2 episodes. Now, it could happen, right? It could happen that he gets sidelined. So, I don't know. We'll see. Viper Chief 117 also has a comment here. All of the Star Wars characters mattered that appeared in the film, which is definitely lacking in Disney's sequel trilogy films. Well, we've talked at length about
we have videos of that. So
yes, and Fletcher Williams is talking about Alan's hair.
Yeah.
Classic slick.
It's not a mullet.
Oh.
No, it's
Oh, and Paul
I need a haircut. That's definitely true.
There you go. Paul Burkett says there's only one Gao, and that's God of War. I always call Gears of War Gao. I don't know. I don't know. It's it's cool. I mean, look, I will say this, as a gamer, I am a casual gamer. I want to get into something. I want to get out. If I'm going to finish the game, it's got to be something really good. BioShock I finished. I'd say pretty much all the Halo movies, Halo games, except for the ones I didn't like. I didn't finish those. I finished Cyberpunk 2077, but here's what I did. I started playing Cyberpunk 3 months after it came out, and all the patches were there. So I never got to see any of the glitches that people were complaining about. So when I played it, I was like, hey, I don't see a problem with this game. And I played it all the way through, and I'll probably revisit it. I really like Cyberpunk 2077.
I'm actually trying to get my daughter to play Halo, and we may just start from the beginning because she's not done really a first person shooter yet.
And then I have to get right now. I only have a PS4. I have attempted to get a PS5 without. I'm not paying $1,200 for a PS5. I'm just not going to. And I've resisted getting a new Xbox. Michael Tynan says, but is it fun, Chris? Halo was fun. There are aspects that are fun. There are aspects that are fun. I was really impressed with the effects. I think it's very accurate to the one thing I will say, it's the looks are very accurate to the game, meaning Master Chief looks like Master Chief. The design of it, like I don't know. I think it's very accurate looking, and I enjoyed that. So
yeah, but it sounds like you're cautiously optimistic about this.
Yeah, I know I'm cautious, but I mean, I did not expect. I thought, I'm gonna hate it. It's gonna suck, and I put it on. I was like pleasantly surprised, and just wanted. I want to know what happens next. So Ryan Landis, I still enjoy the first.
Yeah, I do too. I love that first Halo.
Yeah, Viper Chief 117. I've attempted to get a PS5 as well, Chris. I've given up because of the scalpers. I've given up as well. I don't know. I guess there's a chip shortage. Supply chain issues. So yeah, and there has been talk of doing a BioShock. Mark Durham says they will wokeify BioShock. I didn't see anything. I didn't notice anything that was overt in Halo that I felt made it woke. It's just, I don't know. It felt accurate to the game. It's just that this new character of Quan is kind of,
yeah, she's become kind of a lightning rod.
First of all, she didn't bother me. Yeah. It's again, she is the entry point. It's not her story. She's along for the ride, just as C-3PO. So there you go. Geek Truth 64 Halo Reach was my favorite, actually, but ODST was pretty underrated too. So here we go. James Kelly asks probably the most important question: how many beloved video games actually translate well to the screen? The ones with good stories. Story.
Yeah. I mean, Halo, we've waited a long time for Halo, and
yeah, but Halo had a really good story.
Absolutely.
In the game itself, right? Just like I felt at least the first BioShock had a really good story. I mean, it's like, I'm loath to admit this, I actually kind of got a little choked up at the end of the first BioShock. I didn't cry. I did not cry, but I got a little choked up. Like, it was just, such an original game, original design. I love the sound design of it. It is so good. Just so many aspects of BioShock I loved. It's so like not a traditional type of game of that type, sort of action game, adventure game aspects, puzzle game aspects, but also like, oh, this would make a really good movie. Paul Burkett says, play Witcher 3 for an amazing story and immersive open world. It's on my list. It's one of those things with like video games for me. It's like a time management issue. Like, if I am going to play a game, it's because I'm locked down and can't do anything else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, so, no, I mean, I'm down to 2 games right now that I play constantly, and I can't get myself into another one now.
Well, look, video game adaptations. We've got, let's see. James Alquist says, I feel like Halo buzz has wore off after the first 3 games. Fans wanted a show, then not nearly 2 decades later. Am I crazy to think that? No, I think you're, but it's also a thing that's like, because it's embedded, because so many people played it when they were younger, like having that like in their head, it's like one of those things, oh, they finally now have made a show. I'm saying this, if I have to, would I recommend it? I'd recommend at least starting it there wasn't anything that put me off so much that I wanted to not watch it. And I was interested enough to want to know what happens next based on the story elements that they put in place. But if you care a lot about accuracy to the video games, this isn't that. The TV show is not that. It's an amalgam of all of the different games kind of elements of them, or at least say the first three. Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to translate. It's hard to make a story feel like the video game, because the video game is, it's apples to oranges at that point. It's still the game.
Right. So I don't even know how much is Paramount Plus right now. Let's find out.
Isn't it like less than $10 or something?
I don't know. I'm just trying to think.
I used to subscribe until the Star Trek stuff started to suck.
Well, the Star Trek stuff, I was 4 episodes in with Discovery. I think they dropped the first 2 episodes. Anyways, I unsubscribed before it.
Yeah, I couldn't get myself to resubscribe for Picard.
Yeah. I don't know. It just but all I hear, it's plans start at $4.99 a month. That means you get commercials, right? You can. I don't know. I just,
Yeah. I know. It's just another one.
Yeah, $10 for no commercials, says the Blockbuster guy. Thank you for that. So there you go. 10 month, $5 with ads, says Galaxy Red. Thanks. But I just, at least it's not, I will say this, it's not a disaster, and maybe, you know what, other people, I have not watched other Halo reviews, but I will see like some of the thumbnails on YouTube, and it seems like people are dismissing it. I would not dismiss it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, the buzz leading into it was pretty harsh, and so
yeah, there you go. Marksman of 117B. If you want an amazing story, you try Special Ops: The Line. Heavily inspired by Apocalypse Now, about a Delta squad trying to find survivors in Dubai after a military unit and city buried by a sandstorm. So there you go. I mean, yeah, I might wait for a deal. Blockbuster guy, they run deals on Paramount often. I got it for 3 months for 99 cents a month. See, that I would do just to kind of see if I'm like, is there enough there for me to like continue? I bought years ago. Well, no, it was like maybe 2 years ago. I bought Disney Plus for 3 years for like under $4 a month. And so I'm kind of stuck with it. So there you go. Yeah. And if anyone has any more specific questions, I will respond to them. If not, we're going to move on and we're going to have some fun, because Alan and I I think we're going to watch some trailers for some indie movies, give you a preview of what we're going to be talking about on Friday. So just so everyone knows, we do a late night stream in the middle of the week, like on a Wednesday, like today, around happy hour time, and then we do a morning stream on Fridays at 9 a.m. Pacific time, specifically where we talk about movies that have opened that weekend. And then additionally, we interview filmmakers. So if you're interested in having access to filmmakers these are independent filmmakers who made movies that some of them are in theaters, they're out on video on demand. What I'm trying to do is build a community of people so that you can learn from people who have done it, who have gotten to a specific place, and you can have access to them and ask them questions about, well, how did they raise $1 million? No, and I'm serious. That is a legitimate question for you on Friday to ask. It's the question that I think how do you raise $1 million to make a movie, and then a small indie movie, then make it look like it cost $10 million to sell it to a distributor for $3 million? And what's weird is $1 million is a lot of money in the world of film. It's not considered a lot of money. Oddly, I know, weird, but there you go. So join us for that. So Fletcher Williams says, it's not a disaster. Continue to watch for more glowing reviews. Fletcher, are you watching my balls? No, but that's the thing. I expected it to be awful based on a lot of like sort of where things have gone. And Halo surprised me for not being terrible, which is weird to say. And there are things I liked about it, but there are also, I think the things that people are thinking they may not like about it didn't annoy me as much as it might annoy you. Your mileage may vary.
Yeah. So that means that the Rings of Power could be the most amazing fantasy television show ever made.
I don't have a lot of high hopes for it.
Yeah.
I
don't either.
The trailer did not look good. It specifically was like, look, grab me with the trailer. That first Lord of the Rings trailer. I'm talking about for the first Lord of the Rings movie, The Fellowship
the Peter Jackson
of the Ring. The Peter Jackson was great. And I was not like a super fan or didn't care. And so there you go.
Yeah, and I think a lot of comments we got having said that is, you know, it feels like that they're not even invoking the spirit of Tolkien in it, and I think that's a valid concern.
It seems like they've strayed from the source material for it, and it sounds like they're making, you know, radical changes with it that may turn off the core audience. So there you go. Geek Truth 64, maybe going in with low expectations worked out for you, Chris. I think so, because my expectations were just already so lowered because it's like they talked about making a movie for years. The movie was announced actually, and then it didn't happen.
Yeah, it was Peter Jackson long ago.
Back in the day, it was supposed to happen. Yeah. So,
I mean, like right after Lord of the Rings, they announced that he was going to do Halo.
And Fletcher Williams says Alan is never wrong.
I mean, can't argue with that.
Anatorius Vex says if they were going to make something that wasn't directly about the chief, why didn't they follow up on Forward Unto Dawn instead of changing the whole story? I can't answer that question. I don't know. Like I say, they took an amalgam of story elements from, I would say, the first 3 Halo games.
The Bungie Halos, basically.
Yeah. And then just kind of added them together, you know, and if sort of basically this is, you know, this is the gateway to the Halo universe. Master Chief is, you know, the biggest part of that universe. So there you go. There you go.
You can't not have Master Chief. Yeah.
Let's talk about, let's give a little preview of what we're going to talk about on Friday, switching gears. And if people have any other like questions about Halo, you know, I'm happy to answer them as we continue this. This is Hollywood on the Rocks. You should literally have a drink, be hanging out with Alan and I, asking questions, and just, I don't know, just chilling with the two of us. But I want to talk about a movie that we're interviewing the director of this film on we're going to interview the director of this film on Friday, and we're going to talk about this movie. So I'm going to switch gears here, and thank you everyone for your comments. Let me see this. Galaxy Red, I came in here late, but did Chris confirm that Master Chief is getting amnesia? Okay, I'll confirm. It's not that he got amnesia. He didn't know he had amnesia. Does that make sense? Like, he discovered a past life he had that he didn't know he had, so he didn't know that he had amnesia. So he's getting it. So I guess, I mean, maybe
so he got amnesia.
He got amnesia. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I try to overthink it.
No, he got amnesia. That's
everyone watching. Like, look, I take this seriously. You ask me a question, I'm going to respond to it. You tell me to go F myself, I'm going to ask you why. Did I offend? What did I say?
Or later today.
Yeah. Master Chief and Old Man Voice, get off my Dawn. Great comment, Paul Burkett. Halo question here from the Blockbuster guy. How did the Covenant sound? I just want to know if they sound like the game. They do. They do. I mean, that's the thing that actually did impress me was I feel like there was huge respect towards the design and the sound elements and the look, you know, of Master Chief, right? And even like maybe getting into maybe more details with the tech, maybe more than we wanted. You see the evolution of what will become Cortana. You see all of those things. And I feel that there was much respect paid to the look and the sound and the music. I think maybe it's almost like they're waiting, to get to a certain point, to have it be more game accurate, which I would love. But the story, like I say, it's an amalgam, right? At Ivan Flores says, I would love to hear your opinions. See a vid on RoboCop, the story of how a cop with amnesia solved his own murder. Interesting.
I hadn't thought of it that way.
Ivan may have stumbled upon something there. Yeah. Here we go. Viper Chief 117. Master Chief thought he was Gordon Ramsay and decided to make himself a chef instead.
Master Chef, yes.
Thank God they did not do that. I think that's awful.